agenda item. As I said at the beginning, there is a switch between item 8 and 9 to allow for some members to be present for the debates. We will switch to item 9. I will save time not to list all the products that are concerned by this objection that we are going to discuss now. We give the floor to Anna Hazekamp for the GUE as the lead, I would say, co-rapporteur for this objection.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Chlorotoluron is an active substance that has been on the market since 2006, and it is widely used for weed control in cereal crops and authorized in around about 20 member states. But since its approval in 2006, its effects on the environment and on human health have never been properly reassessed. Instead of a proper reassessment, as prescribed in the legislation, the original authorization has been extended time and time again. The only thing that has changed since 2006 is that chlorotoluron has been placed on the list of candidates for substitution because it is considered to have endocrine disrupting properties that may cause adverse effects in humans, and because it meets also the criteria for it to be considered a persistent and toxic substance. Furthermore, chlorotoluron has an harmonized classification of a very toxic to aquatic life, very toxic to aquatic life with long-lasting effects, and suspected of causing cancer. Also considered to cause damage to the unborn child. But still, we are discussing today the 5th extension of this pesticide. And I believe that these extensions of a substance that is known to cause harm to humans and the environment goes against the precautionary principle and against the pesticides approval regulation, which specifies that substances should only be included in plant protection production, and that they are not expected to have any harmful effect on human or animal health or any unacceptable effects on the environment. This substance clearly has those unacceptable effects. We have already objected to the previous extension of this same substance last year. And I know that the Commission will state that they have no choice but to extend the approval period, citing Article 17 of the regulation. But I will point again to Article 21 of that same regulation that provides the Commission that the Commission may review the approval of an active substance at any time, especially where, in the light of new scientific and technical knowledge, it considers that there are indications that the substance no longer satisfies approval criteria. And I appreciate that the Commission is also very concerned that member states are not respecting the deadlines set out in the European rules for completing the assessment procedures for approval or renewal of active substances. Commissioner Kyriakides addressed this concern in May this year in a letter to member states, including the rapporteur member states for chlorotoluron, Bulgaria. The letter states that this situation, and I quote, results in a repeated, unjustified extension of approvals which are increasingly criticized by the European Parliament and some member states as potentially unsafe substances and products can stay longer on the market. This situation is unsustainable and immediate action must be taken to address it. I agree, it's quite right. I would like to know if there were any replies to the letters sent by the Commission and how the Commission will further ensure that action is taken to remedy this situation of the unjustified and potentially dangerous extensions And I hope my colleagues will support us once again for this objection of this extension to a potential endocrine disrupting chemical. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have as co-rapporteurs Maria Arena, TMS, and Eleonora Evi. Would you like to have the floor as well? So starting with Maria Arena is, I don't know, she's not there, so she is. So I don't know if you want to have the floor first. No, TMS, Eleonora Evi. So we might move to the two other speakers that requested the floor. Oh, sorry. We have now TMS in the system. So TMS, the floor is yours.
Oui, merci. Bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, and hello again. I didn't realize it was a catch the eye thing. So once again, I have to point out the inconsistency between what the Commission is defending verbally and what actually happened. In 2019, Parliament was against the extension of the authorization of this substance, which is a very toxic substance for the aquatic environment with long-term effects, and it's strongly suspected of having multiple nefarious consequences ever since it was put on the market. So I wonder how on earth is it possible to say, on the one hand, that you're protecting biodiversity, you've made this your priority, and then at the same time you're extending the authorization of this substance without properly assessing it. How on earth is that compatible with the zero pollution objective which the Commission have set themselves? Now, to extend the authorization just on the grounds of administrative convenience just doesn't wash. And I think it's really important to withdraw it.
So we move to the shadows. We have Pierre Weiss for the EPP.
Thank you. Hi, hello. Yes, this is the first kind of an experience for me on this file here. So I have been in contact with the DD Center to really understand the process from here. And since it is an implementing act, then adoption or not of the objection, they will still have to extend for this specific substance. But what we also know is that now we have the report from Bulgaria that EFSA can now begin to assess. And also I have learned that when that process is being started up now, they will be obliged to react at the specific time that they might find conclusions to change the extension of what is it called? The extension of the period. So that's why the EPP position is not to support this objection, because it is an implementing act, and also because the evidence and assessment of the evidence is in the proper hands of those who know how to deal with those matters. So that's our position on this. Now we have the report from Bulgaria, so that EFSA can work with this one here, and we know that there will be in July next year finally the report coming up, but also that if they find proof for the challenges and the suspicions to chlorotoluron, then they will have to act immediately. So that's why we also is confident that we can not support the objection. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to Véronique Trier-Lenoir for Renew. Véronique, your connection is very bad.
Sound is truly atrocious. We can't do this.
Sander Vandra for ECR, and back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think the connection should be better now. Well as the EPP, we are all also against the objections. Firstly, we believe that the Commission is obliged to extend the approval, and the ban would put the EU farmers at a competitive disadvantage with the third country counterparts. Secondly, we do not see any evidence that this chlorotoluron would be harmful. For there is the impact assessment study which does not identify it as a potential endocrine disruptor. So, in short, we are against the objection and will vote against this motion. And once again, we are thankful that Parliament does not have a right of veto on this implementing measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So try to get back to Véronique.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, ça va comme ça?
Thank you. So there's this proposal to extend the authorization. About a year ago, the reason for the extension was that the evaluation of the substance hadn't been completed, and this hasn't changed a year on. Does the Commission intend to continue extending the authorization? We think that it's unacceptable to keep on the market substances which are dangerous for human life and for our environment. I've studied the background of these 28 substances. 8 of them are endocrinal disturbers, and some are cancerogenous, carcinogens, and this is toxic also for the reproductive cycle. And the health authorities have intervened on these substances to express their concerns, but this has been the authorization has been extended 4 times now. It's unacceptable in the state that it's in, and so we ask the European Commission once again to present lists of substances which are classified by level of risk, rather than this batch of products which have all got to be dealt with in the same way. It's indispensable. And we've heard this from our colleague. We've got to exert pressure on the member states to carry out these evaluations so that we can come up with an opinion in good time. And that's why I will certainly be against the extension of the authorization period, and I am in favour of the objection. Thank you.
Thank you. So all the speakers have been heard, and so now we move to the Commission. Mr. Berend, as usual, I would say, on that kind of topics.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the floor. And yes, it's again me on this topic. I'm afraid that I will live up to what Ms. Hazekamp expected. I will repeat what I said last time, that Article 17 of Regulation 1107/2009 does not leave us any choice. When the delay in the assessment procedure is not under the responsibility of the applicant, the Commission is obliged to extend the approval period in order to complete the assessment. There is no distinction whatsoever between substances that meet cutoff criteria that are candidates for substitution or substances that are not in these categories. The obligation is all the same. Nevertheless, there is some progress compared to last year. As noted by Ms. Weiss, the assessment report has now finally been submitted by the rapporteur member state, Bulgaria, with a delay of 4.5 years. And I really want to underline that the delay is entirely due to the rapporteur member state, and the Commission can therefore not punish the applicant by now not extending the approval. I would also like to underline that Article 21, to which Ms. Hazekamp alluded, cannot be used in these circumstances because the renewal process, the review, is already ongoing. So there is no benefit and no added value in starting a second one under Article 21 when a renewal procedure and a review procedure is already ongoing and has now reached the status of the peer review process, as Ms. Weiss noted. Some of the statements in the draft objection in relation to chlorotoluron are also not correct. The substance is not an endocrine disruptor. It was identified as an endocrine disruptor solely under the interim criteria in Regulation 1107/2009 that are no longer applicable. We have now other criteria for the identification of endocrine disruptors, and chlorotoluron was not identified as potentially meeting them during the screening exercise that was made when these criteria were prepared. And to respond to a remark from Ms. Mess, it is also not correct that the substance has never been assessed. It was assessed prior to its first approval. As Mr. Wonder noted, we are indeed obliged to extend this approval, and to maybe conclude, Ms. Hazekamp said that there are clear indications that the approval criteria are not met, and that is not the case. I think Mr. Wondra also said that for the moment, there is no clear evidence that the approval criteria are not met, and therefore there's also from that perspective no reason not to extend the current approval, apart from the clear legal obligations that we must do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So the vote in ENV will take place on November 17th, tomorrow, and if the objection is voted in ENV, we will go for the plenary session number 2 in November. We move now to the agenda item number 8 on another objection, and I will give the floor to Maria Arena for SND.
Oui, voilà.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I will not go on too long about the exclusion criteria for carbendazim because we were very clear on it in this objection, and this is related to the directive of 98, the applicable directive. So I would like to say that although it might be true that the DVC did say that the available data did not allow us to draw conclusions on this substance, it is important for us to note that the fact that it is impossible to make conclusions doesn't equate to a conclusion that this is not an endocrine disruptor. This uncertainty that we can add to all of the many reports that suggest that this might be a dangerous substance is something that we need to use. And I want to insist on the assessment criteria that should have led to a ban of carbendazim for certain uses, and say, first of all, for uses in products 7 and 10, the opinion that we have is that this is an unacceptable risk when it comes to Article 5. This should have led the Commission not to authorize the substance. So I would like to understand why the Commission did not follow the conclusions of the assessment report on these points, and why is there a lack of coherency when it comes to types 9 products, which have the exact same risk, but for which the opinion was followed and carbendazim was not used. So there is also a lack of sufficient reasoning to justify the use of these products when it comes to the environmental risk. In order to mitigate risks, we can see that there is no adequate measure for external use of this product. So can the Commission say what are the conditions that they want member states to apply if they authorize the use of products containing this substance? They say that they will specify the conditions in December, but I think that we should know in advance what these conditions are so that we can propose additional measures. Otherwise, the Parliament would not have its full power to weigh in and the power of checks and balances. The toxic properties of carbendazim are already well known. Thank you for your attention.
Merci. So I will give the floor to the other co-rapporteurs, starting with Anna Hazekamp.
Well, thank you, Pascal. Yes, a little while ago, we have received and debated the chemical strategy for sustainability. And this important part of the Green Deal sets out the steps we need to take to achieve a toxic-free environment and to ensure that chemicals are produced and used in a way that maximizes their contribution to society while avoiding to harm the planet and to for current and future generations. This strategy foresees that the most harmful chemicals are avoided for non-essential societal use, and that all industrial chemicals are more safely and more sustainably used. And these are all very important and much needed and very welcome ambitions. And that makes it so bizarre that we are today discussing the authorization of a very, very toxic substance, carbendazim, as a particular substance that is classified as mutagenic category 1B, and toxic to reproduction, also category 1B. In other words, this is precisely the sort of chemical we should be banning and not authorizing. And this authorization will lead to unacceptable consequences for the environment and for human health. In the middle of a pandemic, we really should know better. This is why I support this objection, and I hope that we can count on the support of a large majority in this House. The Commission needs to live up to its own ambitions and really work on a toxic-free environment for all. Thank you.
Thank you. So there is no request for the floor from Michel Rivasi, nor from Eleonora Evi. So we move to the other members and the shadows, starting with Michel Rivasi is asking for the floor. Michel.
Non, j'attendais que vous me donniez la parole, mais c'est vrai que je m'étais.
Chair, I was waiting to get the floor. I didn't raise my hand because I'm a co-rapporteur. But yes, this substance, you have to see that we are being asked for it to be renewed for use both for consumers, but also in the masonry industry. I'm sorry, the speaker's audio has dropped.
We can't hear you. On peut plus t'entendre. So I move to Schneider for the EPP, and then back to you, Michel.
Hallo? Okay. Carbendazim wird als Kanzerogen.
Carbendazim is a carcinogen and it is toxic. It is a material that we don't want to see anymore, but that is what we want and what we wish. But we have to look at what is possible and implementable. There is a problem, and the problem is the existing law. This particular element is not on the list right now because the evaluation report of August 2013 and all evaluation reports before the 1st of September 2013 fall under paragraph 19, section 2 of the biocide directive. So there is implementation of it, as that is what is foreseen. It is stated that it is not effective, it is not detrimental to health and that's why on the basis of the law that exists right now, the particular reinstatement or the extension rather of the approval cannot be denied because of the law that's in place right now. And in the next meeting of the Standing Committee in September, the Commission will implement further restrictions with regard to use in outdoor areas. For now, for indoor areas, it is permitted. Right now, there is no margin right now because of the legislation. And we are against this particular reservation as far as extension of the approval.
Voilà.
All right, can you hear me? Well, I was saying that it's a renewal, a 3-year renewal, a substance that has very problematic characteristics because it is a 1B mutagenic that has been proven. It is toxic, and there are concerns that it might be an endocrine disruptor. What is very surprising, and I'll go back to what Maria Reina said, is how did the Commission not follow the Biocide Committee opinion that said that there would be an unacceptable environmental risk, and then when it's used outside for painting and so on, it would contaminate other surfaces for quite a long time because it is a very persistent substance. Furthermore, this substance, the speaker's audio has dropped again.
Désolé, Michel. Back. No. Okay. So, Michel, tu as été déconnecté. You were disconnected. I think there is a structural problem. We try to solve it later on, but then we move to Martin Olschick for Renew.
Thank you very much, Chair. And indeed, it's a case which, for me, it's kind of completely unbelievable, because we are in the year 2020, yet we are talking about basically allowing a substance that was assessed under the legislation which ceased to be valid 7 years ago. This is a case where on so many levels things have gone wrong. We don't have to discuss whether this is okay substance or not. It's a highly toxic for aquatic environment. It's under the 528 2012 biocide legislation, would simply not be permitted on the market, full stop. Now, and it's beautifully showing where is the problem and why we have to support this objection. First of all, it took 7 years almost for Germany, of all the member states, Germany to do the assessment, which is complete shame. Now, after the assessment, we said, okay, it's going to get through. Whereas it was the application was submitted a month before the entry of the force of the new legislation. So clearly it was last moment application, knowing that they wouldn't get permission.
yes, the Commission will go and say, we have to and permit it. We only give it 3 years, and then we will have a new assessment. But there is no guarantee, sadly, whatsoever, that the new assessment will not take another 7 years. So we'll see then coming back, oh, we have to have extensions because, hey, there is no other way. I think that we have to, and as a group, we've sent back the objection from also one very important point. The measures that the Commission will be discussing with the Member States in December are very important. And what we need to see is a clear signal to the Member States also, not just the Commission, that the measures that are going to be adopted in December are simply discouraging any continued use of the substance, are strong enough to, as much as possible, limit and ideally eliminate the use of the substance, which should have happened already some years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last speaker will be Alexander Vondra for ECR.
Yes, so again, the ECR opposed this objection. Firstly, based on the legal grounds, the Council and also we in the Parliament should follow the long-established transitional provisions, which cover also the exclusion criteria. As ICHA identified as safe use in its scientific opinion, there are no legal grounds to refuse the substance for a short period of time, so those 3 years. Secondly, concerns that carbendazim poses a risk must be addressed, but that is why this approval is limited just to 3 years under very stringent condition, and why any further renewal must comply with the new regulation, including its exclusion criteria. It will force companies manufacturing products with carbendazim to look for substitutes with a 10 years approval period. The objection claims on the substance endocrine disrupting properties is also misleading. 26 member state experts out of the 27 on ENV Committee drew the same conclusion, namely that the available data are insufficient to make such a claim. Nevertheless, this objection chooses the one outlier simply because it fits with its narrative. So in short, because of the legal framework established and endorsed by the Council and also this Parliament, the Commission is legally required to propose the approval of this substance, and we should not be looking to retroactively rewrite this law and its strict safeguards through alarmist and exaggerated claims. Thanks.
Thank you. And the last word to the Commission, Klaus Behrendt.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So now we are also having objections in the context of the biocides regulation. I first wanted to inform about the legal situation, but this has already been done by Ms. Schneider and Mr. Vondra, who have exactly and correctly explained that we are obliged to apply still the criteria of Directive 98/8 EC, the predecessor of the current regulation, and that therefore the cutoff criteria as such do not apply to this substance, nor was there an obligation for applicants to fully investigate ED properties. And with the information available, there was no conclusion that the substance is actually an endocrine disruptor. Ms. Rivasi and Ms. Arena have both also asked the question, why are we deviating from the BPC or the ECHA opinion in this case? But in actual fact, we are not. ECHA has found that there are no risks to human health from the uses in these product types, and also not for people living in houses, for example, that have been painted with paints containing the substance or with construction material containing the substance. As to the environment, ECHA has actually found that from outdoor use, there can be risks, but only in urbanized areas, whereas this is not the case if we are looking at individual buildings or individual construction objects in the environment. And ECHA has also not recommended that the Commission imposes specific risk mitigation measures in this regard, nor has ECHA recommended that we refuse the approval. So we are actually in line with the ECHA opinion and the recommendations. Now, however, and this is to respond to Mr. Heusig and also to pick up on something that Ms. Schneider already said, and Mr. Vondra, with all the conditions that we are placing on this approval, we make it indeed unattractive for companies to apply for actual authorization in the member states. And the restrictive conditions that we have already proposed will be further reinforced in our revised proposal that we will present to the Standing Committee in December, where we will propose that indeed member states will not be allowed to authorize outdoor use, and that paints and construction materials containing the substance have to be labeled with the statement that they are not to be used outdoors. So we go even beyond the recommendation of ECHA in that sense, as EFSA did not recommend any such measures, but we will nevertheless propose them, and this emerged from the discussions with the member states on the first version of the draft regulation. So to sum up, legally, we are obliged to apply the criteria of the former directive. There are no grounds in the ECHA opinion to refuse the approval, and we set conditions and shorten the approval period very much in order to trigger a new process for reviewing this approval if companies actually do apply, in order to then apply fully the criteria of the current BPR, including the cutoff criteria. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the vote in ENV will be tomorrow, and the vote in plenary, if the objection is voted in ENV, November 2 session. So I will now close this meeting and open formally the voting session. The voting session will be open tomorrow, Tuesday at 10 a.m. and will be closed at 11. So we will proceed as usual now. And let me remind you that there will be also, as I said at the very beginning of this meeting, a second voting session on the ENV opinion on the consent procedure of the proposal for the MFF for, of course, 21-27. This voting session will take place on Wednesday, so in 2 days' time, in Wednesday, from 5 to 6 p.m., and you will receive all the relevant information by email. Thank you, and we will see, or if see is not probably not the right term, but we will see each other for the next ENV session, November 13th. Thank you very much.